Welcome everyone. You are listening to the Maitri podcast between friends, conversations with Maitri. I am your host Nandini Ray, and today we will be talking about our immigration program. As a natural extension of services for immigrant survivors, Maitri became a board of immigration appeals recognized organization in 2011. We noticed that most of the callers who are reaching out to us for help, they had at least one, if not more, immigration related concerns. So it became necessary for us to have an immigration assistance program. Today, we have Zakia Afreen and Shabana Ansari with us to talk about our immigration program and how Maitri is committed to offering effective, culturally responsive representation whenever required and advocating for immigration policy changes to uplift survivors' needs. It's my pleasure to introduce Shabana Ansari and Zakia Afreen. Shabana Ansari is Maitri's legal program coordinator. She joined Maitri in 2014, working and supporting survivors with legal advocacy, information, and education. An integral part of Maitri, she represents clients with immigration needs, provides direct client advocacy, assists clients with the court preparations, and accompanies them to court. Shabana also manages Maitri's language resource list, client database, and outreach activities for the legal program. She is fluent in multiple South Asian languages, including Urdu, Hindi, and Marathi. Please meet Zakia Afreen. Zakia has been an advocate for immigrant women at Maitri for over 16 years and currently serves as the Director of Survivor Advocacy Programs at Maitri. She is a senior fellow and adjunct professor of international law at Golden Gate University in San Francisco. Zakia represents clients with their immigration needs and drives Maitri's policy advocacy efforts, uplifting the voices of immigrant survivors. She founded Aditya in 2020, a social and cultural platform for the Bangladeshi diaspora in the US. Zakia and Shabana, welcome to the show, and the mic is yours.
Thank you, Nandini, for the introduction. Today, Shabana Ansari and I, Zakia Afreen, we will be talking about Maitri's immigration program. Welcome, Shabana.
Thank you, Zakia.
Maitri began its immigration assistance program officially in 2011. That's the year we became Department of Justice recognized agency. And what that means for us is that we can now provide authorized legal advice in relation to people's immigration concerns. And both Shabana and I, we are accredited as immigration representatives with the Department of Justice. This has expanded our services for immigrant survivors in a very meaningful way. And today, that's what we wanted to share with you. Now, like many of Maitri's programs, this immigration program expansion came about because we felt a need. We have always been an agency that puts the client's needs and client's demands first when it comes to expanding our services. So we saw a need for most of our survivors that they have immigration related questions, they had immigration representation issues, complexities as such that only people with the cultural context can provide services that can take care of their immigration concerns. And to give an example, most of the survivors we work with at Maitri are first generation immigrants. And that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has immigration as a stressor in their relationship. But in a healthy relationship, just like when we see that both parties know about their immigration status, they know what rights they have, and they have all the information related to their stay in the United States. Once a relationship becomes abusive, one of the pre conditions, I would say, or one of the red flags that we find is when a partner tries to hide the information, or a partner tries to control any immigration status related information from the other partner who may be dependent for their status on the immigration holder partner. Now, that's because that's a red flag that actually becomes one of the tools that abusive partners use against their spouses. And many times, because of immigration related consequences, a survivor may choose not to do anything about the abuse they are suffering. It could be because they don't know enough whether their status will allow them to live on their own in the country, or if they have to leave the country if they decide to leave the relationship, and that whether that would mean leaving their US born child in the United States with the abusive partner. So it's a very complex decision. It's a very complex area that many of our survivors struggle with. And we thought that domestic violence counselors, informed with the immigration regulations, informed with immigration valid information and what the options are, could provide holistic support within our agency. And that's what was behind us getting our immigration program as a DAJ accredited, recognized program in Santa Clara County. Now, Shabana, now I want to talk to you about you have recently become an accredited representative, and you are already starting to represent people. But even much before that, as a domestic violence counselor, as a legal advocate, and now as a legal advocacy coordinator, you talk to survivors every day. What are some of the common concerns you hear related to immigration from our survivors? Could you please share with us?
My experience, laws can be very complicated. And for a survivor to navigate between the trauma that they are going through and following the law and process, it can be very, very challenging. I can share an example here. There are so many examples, but a survivor often comes here as a dependent visa. It means they are depending on their immigration status is depending on their spouse. Now, their status is connected with their good faith marriage, and for all the abuse, if it leads to divorce, the moment the divorce gets finalized, the survivor will have no status. So she will have to find her own status. Now, we have also seen the complexity when there are minor children involved, and especially if the children are US citizen, the survivor will have to leave the country if she cannot find her own immigration status, but cannot take her minor children with her if she has to leave the country. Now, there are so many nuances that we have seen in this power and control dynamic relationship, where the questions that we often hear from the survivor that what can I do if my divorce is finalized? What are my options? Can I take my children with me? My spouse has not shared any immigration documents, so she has no possession of her any of the immigration papers. And what can I do there? I have missed, for example, if they have filed for any immigration, the spouse has filed any, I'm giving an example here for H4 dependent paperwork, she has no possession. Or if there were any appointment, she has no information. In that situation, she has missed her appointment, or she cannot renew her visa, she's stuck. So these are, the cycle of abuse actually continues in very many circumstances. And the things are very complicated, as I said, if there are children involved. We have been dealing with situation that we are not even only serving survivors who are here, but there are the increasing numbers of transnational abandonment where a survivor actually was sent back to the home country. Here I can tell if they are in India, they are stuck there because they cannot come back because the spouse has not actually filed for their extension. So they do not have valid visa. We have also had situation where spouse has brought the US citizen back saying that they will have the mother come later, but the mother has not been in contact once the spouse has came with the minor and she cannot come to the United States or reunite with their children. So I'm just saying that our services has expanded from doing the domestic violence advocacy. Now we are also involved providing immigration law advocacy. And we have seen in so many dynamic and complex situations and trying to find help. And that's where we felt that there is a urgent need for a survivor to get help, not only in their family law matters, but immigration is also a very emerging needs that organizations like Maitri and we as an organization's representative are trying to help survivors in immigration matters as well.
Thank you, Shabana. You have just described the myriad of services that we are providing. So I will just again, repeat some of the key services that we provide within our immigration program. First of all, is when we are doing safety planning with a client, immigration is always an important issue that we keep in mind. And for immigration, what safety planning means is different for each person. It could be something as simple as updating one's address with the USCIS to getting hold of their documentation, to many different things. Then, of course, there is an assessment process that we do with eligible clients to see what kind of visa status they may be eligible to apply for and what are the documentation they may need. Then comes representation. If we identify somebody who is eligible for one or multiple types of available visa relief, in that situation, we will represent people. And then if we cannot represent somebody, we will find effective representation for them. I'll come in a minute to Shabana to hear from one of the groups that we always give priority while deciding who we need to be representing first. And then the last part within our immigration program is very simple: know your rights. Just because somebody is an immigrant in this country doesn't really mean they cannot call the police, they cannot go to family court, they cannot get protection, and in many cases that they cannot get any benefits from the government when they need it, including food benefits, including housing assistance and other things. So these actually seem like very general information, and why wouldn't anybody know these things? But we have seen in our experience that in an abusive relationship, one of the major tools an abusive partner can use is misinformation or scare tactic about immigration status or about deportation and how that happens to people. So all of these are literally covered within our immigration program, and all of the client advocates are trained in safety planning, keeping that immigration concern in mind. Now, Shabana, I want to hear from you about our language advocacy, which is uh, really plays a big part in for us to deciding um, who we who we should be representing first, or who gets the first priority, just because um, language is such a big part of advocacy. We oftentimes choose that someone who needs assistance in language translation and interpretation, that person should get priority when we are trying to represent them. So, Shabana, I want to hear from you. Why is it that language advocacy is so important, not just for domestic violence counseling, but also for immigration assistance?
Sure. Thanks, Zakia, again. My experience, I'm gonna start saying that in the home country when we live or we come from, I personally never felt that we need language support, because you will always find some or the other will speak the language that a person will understand. My experience with language advocacy actually starts sometime in 2009, when I was actually volunteering for a United Nations conference, and I would actually go as a representative and help West speaker groups to represent themselves in this conference and share their experiences or the needs. So that's where I felt that, how important it is for a person and a language to be able to communicate, especially when we are in the foreign country. Now, as an immigrant survivor, when they are here, often a clientele that I will tell from Maitri, we serve a huge number of survivors who need language support. Now, I'm adding my experience to support language advocacy when I was not part of Maitri, but then when I came to Maitri in 2014, and I saw that how important it is to be able to connect with the survivor, especially when we can communicate in that language. Because as an immigrant survivor, when they are here, knowing somebody speaking their mother tongue feels very connected. And I can tell you that a survivor feels very comfortable when I will say, for example, that, oh, I can find an advocate for you who can speak your language. And, that's where we start our trust with the survivor. Now, for me, I'm really glad that I could actually speak 3 different Indian languages, and which actually helped me to build a rapport, and so as all the advocates at Maitri that we have. And I strongly believe that language accessibility or availability is the first way for a survivor to participate in any field, whether they are visiting doctor's office, calling police for help, or attending their court hearings. And at Maitri, we always first check like what language they are comfortable, and we make sure that we find that advocate if they cannot speak in English, and we find an advocate to be able to communicate with them. And as I'm saying again, that like many rights, as an advocate, as a domestic violence advocate, I firmly believe that getting language access is survivor's basic right among many. Now, the people that reaches out to Maitri, as Zakia has also mentioned before, and in our conversation here, that often they are immigrant survivor. Now, immigrant and survivors are 2 different words, but it actually goes hand in hand, right? Here, survivors who do not know the laws, already dealing with a lot of cultural shocks on top of the abuse. They do not have any family, they have no friends, they have left their job, and they have come here and dealing with all these things and not been able to understand in a trauma situation. I think language advocacy is must there. At Maitri, we are not only providing interpretation to our survivors within the agency, but we also make sure and advocate that when they are meeting, for example, if they have a court hearing, helping survivors to request an interpreter for their domestic violence restraining order hearing, making sure that they have help if they are visiting a public benefits office in order to request for public benefits, making sure that they have an advocate who can provide language support while they are visiting an attorney's office. There are so many things goes hand in hand, but if we are trying to empower a survivor, that's where we are working towards. I feel that providing language advocacy is must. And now this is when I'm talking about the providing oral interpretation or in-person help. But we at Maitri, we have also been a huge advocate for helping our organization and also at multiple places where we are trying to translate many documents in a South Asian languages, and those are actually also accessible to people from our website. And like Zakia has mentioned, and she will talk more about the Know Your Rights sessions, and we will deal like how we are actually promoting language advocacy as survivors' right in order to have justice.
Thank you, Shabana. When I was listening to you, I just remembered the statistics that I recently looked up for one of our documentation. In California, 44% of people speak a different language than English at home. Just think about it. It's almost half of the population are comfortable in their homes speaking in a different language than English. So when we are calling ourselves culturally responsive and trauma informed service provider for immigrants, we have to provide effective language advocacy, and we are always trying our best to incorporate that in whatever services we provide. Now, I want to share some specific information about what kind of immigration related assistance we provide. So in our 12 years of the program so far, we have done many Violence Against Women's Act related self-petitions. We have done U-visa petitions, T-visa petitions, asylum based on gender-based violence. We have done many employment authorization application, both for different types of immigration relief holders and also for the very new H4 abused spouses that recently came about. We have also taken on citizenship cases because many of our clients, once they have a visa status, after a few years, they have become eligible for citizenship. But due to certain um, address related complications or something or the other during their application process, they need some specific instructions for citizenship application process, and then we help them with those. We have done derivative applications as well, and as Shabana was mentioning, we have had clients sent back as abundant back in South Asia, um, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, from all of these consular processing, different types of visas we have done. When people were eligible, many of those cases actually people are not eligible for any kind of relief, but whenever they are, we have tried to step in and help them. Now, before ending this session, I want to take a little bit of time and just talk about how else is immigration important for us as an agency. Whenever we are doing any policy related discussion, we try to make sure we bring out the need for immigration reform in different categories in different ways that can make a survivor's life easier, that can make people make a free decision without fear. If they wanted to leave an abusive relationship, they shouldn't have to think about what could happen to their immigration, or they shouldn't have to think about separation from their children if the children are US citizens. Right now, we see a lot of focus on the on punishment in terms of domestic violence situations, and many of these visa relief like T visa, U visa actually depends on the victim becoming part of the criminal justice system. And from our experience, we have seen that is not something many of our survivors and victims want to do. One of the major concerns they have when they get involved in the criminal justice system is what kind of effect that can have on the immigration status of the abusive partner. And so we try to bring out those concerns whenever we have an opportunity at policy discussions. We will see we have a long way to go for an immigrant friendly domestic violence prevention field, I would say. And lastly, I will address what Shabana mentioned about our language advocacy and know your rights in immigration related situations. We have worked with many materials and translated them and in multiple South Asian languages, which are available on our website. You can take a look at them. They talk about what are the rights of a survivor, when the immigrant survivors, specifically when they're going through a court system, and whether they have to participate or not. It talks about the rights some of a domestic violence survivor when they're renting a place. It talks about rights at the workplace if people have to take leave, and many others. So I would invite you to check out our website. We have a lot of resources, and if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can call us, you can email us, or you can always attend our meetings. We have community calls, open calls for your participation in different matters. We look forward to having you with us in our journey for justice for the immigrant survivor.
I just want to just reiterate that there are materials available. Please do share among anybody who is in need. Those are accessible, or those are on our website, and it actually gonna help a survivor to find their informed choices and also rights. So, and as I'm just gonna repeat again, please, anybody who's reaching out to help, please let them provide our contact information and they can reach out to Maitri. Thank you.
Thank you, Shabana and Zakia. It was a great, insightful discussion, and I'm sure this information will help many community members out there. Listeners, please share this episode, this information with your networks. If you have any questions for our legal advocacy program and immigration assistance program, please call us at 1-888-862-4874. This is a toll-free number, 1-888-862-4874, or you can email us at maitri@maitri.org, MAITRI. Bye for now. I am your host, Nandini Ray, signing off today. Please keep listening to the Maitri podcast, Between Friends, Conversations with Maitri. Find all our episodes on YouTube, SoundCloud, and on other podcast apps. Please like, share, and comment. We need your support to spread the word out. Thank you.
This show is for informational purposes only and is not to be construed as legal advice. Always consult an attorney for legal advice. Views expressed by guests of the radio show are individual opinions and not endorsed by Maitri.
This project was made possible by funding provided by Santa Clara County Office of Gender-Based Violence Prevention.